Hi there, folks. This is a tarot reading for Gemini, Sun, Moon, and Rising for January 2019. And I'm using the Gemini Astrological Tarot spread, which you can find out more about in my video specifically on this spread. So, Gemini, this is your Ascendant for this month. And it's a 10 of Cups, really, generally speaking, a very auspicious card. So, potentially a lot of happiness and joy coming your way. Although it's interesting because the central card is the Tower, the 13th card, which ties everything together. It's upside down, too, which could suggest that there's some sort of crisis that's being avoided or a mounting pressure of some kind, a buildup of energy that has not been quite properly dealt with and is bubbling up from the surface. So I cannot help but wonder if the happiness may also be some kind of escape from that. But let's do a quick overview of the spread before we delve into any details. We have 1, 2, 3 major arcanum cards. Not very many, really. So nothing too super intense for you this month per se, although at the same time, this is the 13th card, which is the next most significant card to the Ascending card, or Ascendant card. So that kind of does tip the scales a little bit, but we'll find out exactly, or more generally at least, what that means. We have how many, let's see, Pentacles cards. We have 1, 2, just 2, okay? Wands, we've got 1, 2, 3 Wands cards. We've got, we have any Cups? Yes, we have 1 Cups card, like I mentioned, okay? And then so 1, 2, 3 Wands, and then Swords. We've got 1. Oh, I'm sorry. We've got 4 Wands. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then Swords, we've got 1, 2, 3. So it's basically predominantly Wands and Swords as far as the suites go. So that is going to bring us over to kind of the realm of the mind, right? The higher mind versus the lower mind. The mind that is the seat of the contemplative powers of the soul versus the mind that is the seat of the contemplative powers of the personality self, which means kind of a never-ending stream of thoughts. But it's also will and intelligence, too. So will is very much the wands, and swords is very much the intelligence, and so on. So kind of an interesting thing there. Maybe a battle of will, maybe a sort of a fight or some kind of dissonance between acting freely and, thinking, so to speak. We'll see what we can uncover. In any case, what is aspecting the 10 here? Well, we've got the 10 of Swords, which is a pretty, strong card. It's in a more powerful place than the 10 of Cups. So in a sense, it is a little bit more empowered. We've got the 5 of Wands and the 5 of Swords. So 10 and 5, that's kind of interesting, right? So because, 10 is double 5. So we have some kind of a lot of kind of difficult, challenging cards that deal more with an upheaval of some kind, aspecting this 10. And this is why, even though I hadn't seen this, because I don't really analyze these at all before I do the videos, I like to keep it fresh and in the moment if I can. I just prefer to use these pictures that I take instead of dealing out the cards live. But in the moment, I was just getting this sense of like, this is almost like an unrealistic happiness or hope for happiness, and you've got not only your 12th house here expending a lot of energy thinking about it or trying to even build this, which may or may not be bad or anything like that. We'll find out. But you also are expending a lot of resources on it too, as both these pages are pointed towards your ascendant. And so you may have 2 people that are trying to support you in building this as well this month. But the thing is it's aspected by all of these. And so my question becomes, are you being unrealistic? Are you running away from something? Are you running away from a conflict at home? This is the 4th house. Are you running away from like a jealous partner, jealous girlfriend or boyfriend, or the resolute, something here needs to be resolved. It looks like, nobody won this battle. It was an ideological battle, right? And so are you escaping from that, or is that marring the potential for this to be a reality? Because there is some support here with these two cards, even though the Page of Wands is the opposite element to the cups, right? Fire and water. But I still see this as supportive of this vision you have. So maybe you're trying to change your life for the better, and you're starting to get away from the conflicts in your private life with your friends, with your partner, and at your workspace or with your actions. The Ten of Swords is actually one of my favorite cards in the sense, because although it appears like very brutal and damning and kind of demented even, it's actually a card that deals with basically, it's a card when it shows up that sort of forces us to make a tough decision. We can either yield to depression and despair and basically, a soul-killing scenario, or we can destroy the falsehoods and grief and ignorance and idiocies that hold us back. And so this is part of this like fire versus swords thing, this like willpower of like, oh, I'm this and this is who I am and this is what I'm doing and I'm doing it alone, versus the swords message of, is this in alignment with universal justice and cosmic law? And if it's not with the Ten of Swords, then there will be sort of a consequence or a destruction. But if we can take that into our own hands, we can realize that it's not us who dies. It's the false aspects of ourselves. So we can either act, in a sense, you can either act in a way that is going to be indicative of your own destruction, or you can act in a way that is going to be indicative of the destruction of the falsehoods and things like this in your life, if that makes any sense. So what do we have next to look at? Well, if we go to the Page of Wands, this is, again, kind of finances being directed toward this vision of happiness and whatnot. And it's aspected by right side Strength card. It's aspected by Page of Pentacles and this upside down Eight of Swords. Kind of interesting stuff. So on some level, there's a lot of power and potential financially for you this month and in terms of your immediate resources. But for whatever reason, it is being kind of maybe held back or marred in some way. There's kind of a, maybe you may not be. The second house also deals with responsibility, and this is the sixth house, which is also an earthy house. So I kind of wonder if you're not taking care of certain afflictions and things the way you should be, if you're almost like ignoring them. And if that's so, these afflictions might bite you in the back or something like that. They might stifle you or something of that sort. It's hard to say really. But you should be aware of anything that is like trapped or trapping you and that you're sort of like not facing and whatnot. On the other hand, it's kind of showing that your enemies either will have like very little power over you or very little ability to kind of like face you or be a thorn in your side if you have any enemies. But on the other hand, it could show them gradually sort of slipping out of these bonds because it's reversed. So that's something to consider too. And the question is, are you letting these things happen? Are you letting, whether it's like little misfortunes or enemies or things like that, like what aren't you taking care of basically, because you're so obsessed with trying to build this like vision of the future or whatever, which may or may not be a reality or something appropriate. Like this is totally an appropriate thing to shoot for, but maybe it's not that realistic the way you're doing it or this month and that kind of a thing. Yeah, we already talked a little bit about relationship here and that sort of a thing. Maybe we'll come back to it. Your home life is kind of up in turmoil a bit. And, again, it's upside down, and so is this card. Well, these swords cards are right side up, so there's kind of this sense of like not really not really wanting to face this, not really wanting to face this strife that's in your life, not facing it properly, if that makes sense. You know, you're kind of hiding from it behind like a victim mentality or behind conflict avoidance, passive aggressive sort of nature. That's a possibility, at least, you know. So these are things to be aware of. You will feel better after you rip off the Band-Aid, you know, rather than avoiding it. Eventually bandages need to be changed and so on. And, you know, we all know what it's like to slowly peel off a Band-Aid. It's rather unpleasant. But if you just rip it off, it's like, okay, it's unpleasant, stings a little bit, but it's over with and done much more quickly than if you slowly peel it off or just avoid it at all. And then it gets really dirty and gross and can't really do what it's supposed to. There's sort of maybe here in the third house, a desire to do things that are more like pleasurable and stuff, but a sort of, again, inability to do so. Like you're kind of ignoring a great opportunity to experience abundance and have fun because, again, you're just putting too much time and energy into this like vision of the future, so to speak, into this like rainbow of happiness or whatever that you're seeking. That's kind of the vibe I get there. And then if we look at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth house, Queen of Wands, empowered position to be able to do basically whatever you want, actually. You have a lot of power and energy and respect, but you're not necessarily sure how to use it. You're caught between a rock and a hard place, right? On the one hand, again, feeling like a victim, feeling powerless versus conflict abounding around you, right? And you're more, if this is you, you're more concerned with that, right? This could also be like a powerful woman figure in your life of any sort that is going to have a positive effect, in my opinion, on your well-being and certitude and creativity and whatnot. But again, she would be wondering why all this conflict is happening in your personal life and that it just seems a little bit ridiculous and so on to her. Page of Pentacles aspects her, as does Strength. Strength will just add a lot of oomph to what I've already said. And Queen of Pentacles aspects her, which again is like, you know, she's supporting this and this is supporting this, blah, blah, blah. So it just means that there's a convergence of feminine sort of energies here that can allow you to maybe empower yourself or break free of certain stagnant influences, as we see in other parts of the chart. The Page of Pentacles is maybe like sort of a neutral aspect on the Queen on the fifth house here. It's kind of just, again, like it could be like a naivete with money and with approaching this person as well. Like you may not know how to approach them. You may be trying to do things in like a traditional way, but this person or this energy is more about self-empowerment, and it sort of disregards tradition, classically speaking. Cool. So then the eighth house is the Hierophant. So it may be one of the more important houses because it's a major arcanum, followed by the ninth house of Strength. Both these cards are basically, they're basically just right side up in my estimation. I sometimes forget how I drew them, and the spread is a little odd. I don't give too much credence to upside down. I just use it loosely. So it's not a big deal. But the Hierophant in the eighth house is a mounting sense or fear of instability about tradition, I think, and traditional values and things like that. It also may be a sort of a beckoning to go forth into a realm that is outside the comfort zone, you know, that is outside the sort of fourfold comfort zone. I think it's interesting because we have three fives, right? 1, 2, 3. These are all 5 cards. We have at least 2 10 cards, right? But then we have like pages. We have an Ace of Wands that's curiously in here. We have this 8. We have this 9. So we mostly have like higher number cards in a sense, right? So in that sense, you might be nearing the end of something, like a completion of some kind, or the end of a phase of your emotional, mental life. But I feel like the Hierophant is, yeah, again, like beckoning you forth into unknown territory, spiritually speaking, which may lead to ninth house strength, some sort of radical empowerment or resurgence of independence when it comes to spiritual matters and fortune and luck, and sort of reconnecting with your dharma or the reason you're here, your purpose, that kind of a thing, if that makes sense. So that's a distinct possibility. The Hierophant doesn't really have encouraging aspects to it from page, from 9, and from 8. And I say that because it's not like these are bad cards or anything like that, or negative cards. The 8 is, mildly, but it's just that they don't really support the Hierophant energy. They're kind of antithetical to it. This is, again, kind of naivete, daydreaming. This is sort of also daydreaming and escapism. And then this is just sort of feeling trapped. So in that sense, there's not a lot of support for this kind of thing that I described, of like going forward into some unknown dimension of the teachings or spirituality, or even of some sort of tradition being outmoded or kind of crumbling beneath your feet. You may not be paying attention to it as you ought to be, is what I'm getting at here, I think. Strength has the Ace of Wands aspecting, the Queen of Wands, and the Page of Wands. So this couldn't be more auspicious for like great and good fortune and spiritual magnanimity and stuff like that. It involves some risk taking and stuff, but generally a month where you will be empowered in many respects. And I think this is a month too where you'll be able to, by sheer will and faith, just achieve whatever you need to achieve. So that's why I don't think, even though there's some challenges here, as there are always going to be in any spread, they're not really seriously debilitating, in my opinion. They're more about the way you're approaching things and kind of in an unrealistic, daydreamy sort of manner. The 10 of death, no, I'm just kidding. Sorry, the 10 of swords here in the 10th, career, actions, right? Purpose, stuff like that. It's just kind of, again, you're either going to crumble to like guilt and depression here, or you're just going to break free of it. You're just going to break free of all the crap that is not helping you, and so on. And I think it's like very much in your hands whether or not you do either one. I mean, there's a lot of stuff distracting you with these 5s, for sure. But in a sense, strength and Ace of Wands buffeting this make it very possible for your own will and hopes and things to intervene. And then this aspecting adds to that, hopes and dreams kind of overcoming negativity. So that's kind of one of your challenges this month, I think. And then Ace of Wands is in the hopes and friendships position. There's just new potentials arising there. I don't have too much to say about this card. Again, it's getting some odd aspects from the 9 of Pentacles and the 8 of Swords, kind of not really supporting it all that much to me. But, so these things could just sort of be interfering with it, feeling of trapped, feeling of escapism, kind of just interfering with the new potentials in your life. But the more you connect with your, faith and good works and goodwill, right, the more this will become apparent and the more you'll be able to tap into it. Page of Pentacles in the 12th house, back to the 12th house, expenditures, losses, sort of unconscious influences. Again, I just think a naivete and that sort of a thing is apparent here. And, maybe some troublemaking from friends or other people in your life with this Page of Wands aspecting. Hierophant aspects, and so does Queen of Wands. As far as what they have to contribute to the 12th house, I'm not totally sure. This is an odd combination. Many of the cards here are an odd combination, in my opinion. So it's, I almost feel like that this is like the downfall of this is ignoring the influence of the Queen of Wands, who's about empowerment, and the Hierophant, who's about learning and stuff. You know, it's time to learn something new and embrace your own power and become empowered and that kind of a thing. And stop avoiding conflicts, you know, stop letting things control you, basically, letting crises and fears and things control you. And that's kind of your challenge this month, I think. That's sort of your spiritual lesson. So that does it for Gemini. And please don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share this video widely. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it will be helpful for you in the upcoming month. And please don't forget to check out my website for individual offerings and you know, tarot readings and astrology readings and more. And have a blessed January. All right. Peace.